And more now on our breaking news tonight as President Obama attempts to resell his key health care law to a key group of young people, saying what you need for Washington to work is basically one-party rule in Washington. Listen.
Yes, I've got a strong chief of staff, but I'm holding every cabinet member accountable. The challenge, I think, that we have going forward is not so much my personal management style or particular issues around White House organization. It actually has to do with what I referred to earlier, which is we have these big agencies, some of which are outdated, some of which are not designed properly. In our history, usually when we've made big progress on issues, it actually has been when one party controlled the government for a period of time. I mean, the big strides we made in the New Deal, the big strides we made with the Great Society, those were times where you had a big majority.
Joining me now with reaction, Charles Krauthammer, a Fox News contributor. Charles, so your thoughts, because you heard the president talk about two things there, how I am holding every cabinet member accountable. That was said in response to a question about Obamacare and its problems. And then the comments about historically when we've made big progress on issues, it's been when one party had a big majority.
Well, look, on the first, the claim is farcical. We have Benghazi, nobody's been held accountable. Surely not the Secretary of State. The only person who's been demoted is the #2 ambassador in Tripoli, who was rather heroic on that night. And he got sent to a desk job because he spoke out about it. And as for the botched rollout, nobody has been held accountable in HHS. And then you had the Attorney General. Was he held accountable when he deceived the American people over the eavesdropping on the Associated Press reporter and on James Rosen? The answer is no. There's been no accountability. But I thought the second claim the president made was rather interesting. He is right. The big strides were made when you have big majorities, but there's one big difference. In the New Deal and the Great Society, even though FDR and LBJ had great majorities, they always took care to make sure that the big socially revolutionary pieces of legislation had some support, in fact, large support, from the opposition. Social Security did, Medicare did, Medicaid did, civil rights did. Obama, in an act of what I would call constitutional indecency, because it's legal to do it, but it isn't traditional in any way, he passed Obamacare without a single member supporting him in either house from the other side, against public opinion, and after we had had an off-year election in Massachusetts where the candidate for the Republicans ran on a platform of opposing Obamacare. So they shoved it down the throat of the American people through Congress on a sort of a legislative maneuver called reconciliation. And that's the reason he's standing out there alone in the wind as this whole thing, Obamacare, collapses around him. He did not do what FDR and LBJ did. They understood that these majorities are temporary. Obama seized on a temporary majority in 09 and 10, and he passed something American people really rejected, and now he's reaping the whirlwind from that.
And he seems to be confused or indignant, I don't know what the word is, that the Republicans aren't rushing in to try to salvage the law as opposed to sitting back and criticizing it. They don't want the law, they don't like the law, they've never believed in the law. But Charles, do they have an obligation to do some sort of problem solving here with the reality that we have a Democratic president in the White House for at least another couple of years?
Not if you believe, as the Republicans do, and as I do, that the law is in and of itself a disaster, that the architecture of the law, the complexity of the law, the intrusiveness of the law, the contradictory nature of the law is such that it cannot work. It's going to hurt overall the American medicine, which is the finest in the world, and that you really have to start over. If it was reparable, I would say let's repair it. It is not. You have to start all over. You have to address the problem of the uninsured as a discrete issue, discrete problem. You have to address the problem of pre-existing conditions as a discrete problem. You don't call for remaking 1/6 of the economy on the grounds of experts who think in Washington that in 20,000 pages of regulation are going to remake as complex an ecosystem as American medicine. So that was the wrong approach from the start. I think it's a principled position to say it won't work, it cannot work, but let's do something else.
Charles Krauthammer, great to see you.
Pleasure, thank you.
Up next, the GOP campaigns, or the GOP campaign, lessons on how to talk to women. Is that necessary?